Hey, welcome back to the Unstuck movement. As always, I'm your host, Rob Z. Today is a part 2 episode. Not very often on the podcast we bring a guest back a second time, so it's got to be good when we bring back Blair Dunkley to the show. Blair, as you know, I love to dive in with a question right off the bat. And I think our first episode, if you go back through these episodes, go to Mind Models. So it was Mind Models, an incredible episode with Blair. And I want to do Mind Models part 2 today. And one of the things I want to touch on right here at the beginning, so I love if we can make a big shift quickly. That's huge. If we can change something and make something impactful in a very short amount of time, I love to talk about that. So what is one insight for you, Blair? One insight that can instantly shift your life trajectory?
Well, honestly, knowing the difference between confidence and self-confidence. That has shifted so many people, so many of my clients, boom, like that, boom. It blows their mind. Simple definitions. Confidence is others identifying your effective use of skills, attitudes, and behaviors. And self-confidence is you self-identifying your own use of skills, attitudes, and behaviors. That's subtle, but absolutely significant changes everything, because you can then take a look at where you're at and know you know. Now, you also need to pair that with evaluation versus judgment and know that you're not judging yourself and giving yourself a big fat head and pumping yourself up inappropriately. But if you've evaluated and have external verification that what you know is correct, but you doubt yourself, you don't have self-confidence. You need it verified by a third party and them saying to you, what a great guy you are. Well, yeah, but when you own it, you walk taller. It helps in your relationships, in business, in connecting with people, in life. You know you can get through things because you know.
100%. How do we own it?
Well, that's where there's a mind model stack. And I think in the first episode, I gave you access to the 3 E's. It's a freebie that I give away, and I'll make sure you've got that to give away to your people again. But that is the 3 E's are 3 mind models. The first one being effective versus ineffective. And that means if you're thinking about doing things in terms of right, wrong, good, or bad, stop that. That's going to all be judgment. And people go, how can right? I'm right. I know I'm right. Well, yeah, but that's your opinion. You're right 99% of the time. And even if it is right, it's correct, but it's also going to be effective. So when we switch to effective versus ineffective, we get out of the judgmental words. And it's going to always be, if it's effective, it's going to be externally verifiable. It's not your opinion, which means it's internally verifiable only. You go, of course I'm right. I know it. Well, yeah, well, maybe, but is that rightness also correct and true for me? It may be, it may not be. And you don't have to try and convince me, because if it's effective and externally verifiable, I'll see it. And I can test it out for myself. I don't need you to tell me. I know, because then I'm agreeing with you because I see that it's effective. I'm doing what is effective. And when I drop down to the final of the 3 E's and it's evaluation versus judgment, I'm not judging myself and people aren't judging me. And I can evaluate to even improve on that. And that makes me powerful. And when I know this and I'm improving on it, I'm not quite unstoppable, but the next closest thing.
Yeah. So effective versus ineffective, it's externally verifiable, and evaluation versus judgment. So it's no longer my own opinion. It's proven out in the world, kind of like a scientific method, I guess, would be correct.
It is. It's all based on science. In fact, it is a scientific method. If you break it down, I mean, all of the mind models were based on this fundamental construct. And this is, they have to be identifiable, named and labeled. They have to be repeatable. In other words, you have to be able to do them over and over again and get a similar result each time, and duplicatable, which makes them transferable to others.
Mm.
That's basically, in other words, if you share this mind model with other people, and they apply it generally correctly, guess what happens? They get a positive result as well. And they can self-prove it. And so what I tell my students is, don't trust me, test it. So test me, test it, see if it works. I don't need to tell you, trust me, trust me, trust me. And if you do, I generally don't. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, you don't need to get people to you don't need to get people to trust you when it's
No.
proven that it works. When they find for themselves that it's proven that it works, right? So that's huge. I love that.
And they
That's
come
really
to
good.
you. It's exactly. And I've been finding that lately happening more and more.
Yeah. So welcome everybody to the podcast. By the way, this is the Unstuck movement, true testimonies of breakthrough. I bring people on this platform who have found incredible breakthroughs in their lives to prove that it's possible for you to break those chains that are holding you back, whether personally or professionally. We're sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. And also, if you're ready to be the authority in your field, the expert in your industry, and you want to make incredible connections, leave a lasting impact on the world, I'd love for you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com. For the second time around, Blake Dunkley is on the podcast. He is a psychological profiler and life skills coach who developed Mind Models, a system proven to heal chronic mental health conditions and unlock the mind's wealth-building potential. He reaches individuals and businesses to profile effectively and use that insight for growth and success. Talking about this profiling, we didn't cover this on the first episode. How do you profile someone quickly and accurately?
Well, it takes a lot of practice. It takes time. It's a skill set, not a psychic ability, as quite a number of people have accused me of, oh, that must be amazing to be gifted with that power. And I would go, I wish. Like, it hurts my brain. I have to think. It's about listening deeply. And I listened to language patterns, and the language patterns in particular was based on my research of question concepts. And every utterance out of a person's mouth is filtered through a who, what, where, when, why, and how in 4 specific domains or ways. That information tells me which one of the question concepts they're primarily or secondarily using and what that flow is. And when I get the flow and I get a little bit of context, I can take their process and go, oh, that's how they think. Then I can take that pattern, that meta pattern, and say, so what would you like me to tell you about yourself? It only takes me about 10 to 30 seconds of getting enough basic pattern to be able to share that with somebody and start profiling them. So, yeah. And I offer that as one of the behaviors, well, one of my products that I offer on blairdunkley.com. So if people are interested.
Amazing. It's so powerful. I love the fact that this is your expertise. For anybody who hasn't checked out the first episode, how did you end up where you ended up? Just kind of a brief overview so they can get an idea of why you do what you do.
Well, I was already, I started with my mom, 5 years old. I'll skip to 21 when I started the life skills coach training, life skills colleges with my mother and another lady by the name of Vicki Jolin. And 4 years later, I was trained up as a coach. And my dad, I was starting training actually to become a trainer. So a coach trainer, not just a coach, but a coach trainer. I eventually became a master trainer so I can train other trainers. That was a 7-year process. But back to the nuts and bolts. I wound up having, my father went into a coma. He went in for open heart surgery. 2 weeks after that, he hadn't come out of the coma because they induced him into a coma right before he was going to leave the intensive care ward because he stopped breathing. He never came out of the coma for 14 years before he passed. That was the motivation, because I was already trained as a mindset facilitator. and I went to her, my trainer, and she put me through the same 90-minute exercises that I put other students through and trained up other people with. And it didn't work on me. I couldn't make it work. And I'd heard some of my clients say the same thing, students actually at the college. Fortunately, life skills always worked. Well, almost always worked. And so when it broke and she accused me of not believing enough, that's when I just knew. I snapped and said, F you, and I left. Like, absolutely livid. Still am to this day. Never seen her since. Don't want to talk to her. Goodbye. Have a great life. But I don't want to be part of yours. Because you're selling stuff that doesn't work when you really need it. And that's what I needed right at that moment. And fortunately, I was at the college. I had the bent for research. I'd already started research into question concepts. I hadn't finished my research. I was toying around with other stuff in there as well, and getting early mind models, as they weren't called mind models, they were called points of clarity to start off with, but getting these clarity points and recognizing that they were bigger than points of clarity into actually models of how people think. And I needed to create this one for me, and it was called the pivot post. And I needed to be able to pivot out of where I was, and that pivot post literally changed my life. It took me about 2 weeks to figure it out. And so I was about a month away from my dad starting his journey in being in coma before he passed away 14 years later. But that 2 weeks was, I mean, a lot of work and a lot of digging in and a lot of recognizing how to pivot my life, but how to get myself into the present so I could actually pivot and not be, I want to say contaminated, but it's not contaminated, being swayed, being fixated on my past and the pain, but getting a clear spot so I could move forward and know that I could move forward. It's not about getting rid of the pain, because you never actually get rid of it, but you learn how to cope, how to problem solve, and how to be successful way more effectively with, well, the pivot post mind model, but with all of the mind models. That's what they do.
It's incredible, man. And so many times in our life, that's why I love this podcast. I love to find patterns and themes, and pain usually is one of there's 4 things that really cause change in our life, and pain is one of the big things that will cause us to have lasting change in our life. And that pain, is a mess, and that mess becomes a message, and that message is what we bring out to the world to help people with. And so many people have phobias, right? There's so many things that we're afraid of. Most people, most fear of death, fear of public speaking, fear of money. I don't know why arachnophobia just popped in my head, but fear of spiders.
Yeah, it's a big one. It is. Fear of flying.
Fear of flying, absolutely, yeah. Fear of failure, obviously a huge one.
Fear of success as well.
Fear of success, yeah, absolutely. So you have a phobia freedom formula.
Yes.
With your mind models. Talk about that. How could we adopt a formula that could help us break any phobia?
Well, you know what? It's weird. There are ways to shift your brain that are not commonly shared out there, but they're completely well studied and documented through neuroscience. Like one of the common things here is Dr. Heb. Sorry for butchering your name, sir. But the bottom line here is he coined a phrase called what fires together wires together. And when you take a situation in your brain where the neurons are firing off, that pattern, when it's paired to something else, those things are locked in. They become what is fired together, wires together. The brain will literally create neural pathways, synapse connections, ganglia connections in your brain. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to grow them from that experience, or when you're confused, you'll be growing ganglia, because it'll be about 20 minutes for you to get unconfused. If you're super confused, you'll notice that if you work through it for about 15, 20 minutes, it starts getting clearer somehow magically. Well, it's not magic, it's science. And that, again, has been proven over and over again through neuroscience and finding those things. And the neuropeptides, the neurochemicals in your brain that actually create emotion and a whole bunch of other things, are the things that the neurochemicals that aid in growth of ganglia. And the cocktail, the sense of confusion. When you're confused, you can stop being worried about it and saying, geez, I'm dumb, I'm stupid. And I needed to go through this big time because I'm dyslexic. But now I know, wow, when I'm feeling confused, my brain is growing new ganglia. So if I stay with the confusion and attempt to work it through, usually in 20 minutes or so, I've got a glimmer of hope that I'm starting to get it. And that is because I'm literally growing the ganglia with the help of the neuropeptides to actually make those connections in my brain, and starting to see my way through of figuring it out. My brain is getting curious. And your curiosity, if you aren't curious, stay curious, because it'll move you. Curiosity will move you from your limbic system, which is more or less in the back of your head, to your prefrontal cortex, which is your executive committee, if you will. And it will help you start to connect and break out of back here, just being dominated by fear and by all your emotions that are holding you back, into getting curious. And it'll start linking into, oh, what can I do about this? What might I change? What do I see that's happening? And how can I use this to go forward, rather than where do I run? Where do I go? Oh my God, I can't do this. So those are some fundamental things. And in the phobia freedom formula, we take that, because what fires together wires together, and you make rapid, repeated things that are not connected to the fear per se by themselves, but your background, your information of your fear, your phobia, is seated mostly in the limbic. And so we've got to get you into prefrontal cortex and reduce the self-imposed terror that you're going through, because all you're doing is going here and into right in this part of your brain right up here is your motor control, your motor cortex, as they say. And if you stop there, all you're going to do is want to fight, flight, or freeze. That's it. It's going to be behaviors that your brain wants to do.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm trying to understand this practically. So, even in just in saying firing, so give me an example of things firing together. What would those things? What would those things be? Again, an example. Say, let's go to arachnophobia. What would be firing? What's firing together there?
Okay, the second you see a spider, and if you've seen people with arachnophobia, they go spider, and they jump immediately. That is your protection system jumping away and going, I gotta get out of here. And some people are incredible. Like, they will see a little spider crawling across the room, and their legs go up onto the chair. Like, they cannot
I live with somebody. I live with my wife. That's her.
Well, yeah, you know how instant that is.
Yeah.
Well, what if you could get that file of that phobic response, put it in a file so it's remembered. She doesn't have to go through it and be re-traumatized like a lot of different therapies use. Is they force you to face your fear over and over and over again. And sometimes it works. It can work, but a lot of time, or sometimes, it doesn't work, and it re-traumatizes. And so I've had people who've gone in for therapy and it didn't hold for them. Yet with phobia freedom formula, I haven't found it'll either work the first or second time that I go through this. Usually the first time,
So,
And
so what's happening there? So what are you rewiring?
well, we're getting people to hold their file folder open. So like fearified spiders, open, hold that in your mind, but don't dive into it. Just sort of put it in a file folder, acknowledge that. And then I ask them, so look at what's in there, and they go like this, you know, and it's like terrifying. And I go, so can you just leave it in the file folder? They go, okay, yeah. And I ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is that phobia? And they go, if I look at it right now, and well, just tell me, like, what number would you put on the file folder for how bad it is? And they go 10. Like, I mean, this stuff flies out of their mouth. It is, or 7 or 9 or whatever number it is. It just flies out of their mouth. At that moment, I said, great. Now just hold that. In other words, remember, there's another mind model here, remember versus relive, but just remember that file folder. So we're accessing that part of the brain. Now, the next step is, let's do some physical, like we're going to use different parts of the brain. We're going to use your auditory, mouth, talking, hearing stuff, auditory, behavioral stuff. We're going to tap on the skin in different spots. So we're going to trigger different energy meridians in your body. And we're going to use sound. We're going to use visual. We're going to move your eyes left and right, up and down, and go through a whole patterning, repatterning thing while you're holding that file folder in your mind. And people are stunned. They go through this repetition. It takes a minute or two to go through the patterning, and we'll do that. And each time we say, so where's your phobia or fear at now? When you look at the file folder, what's the number on it? And 10, it's now an 8. And they go, okay, don't overthink it. Just let's keep going. That's not low enough. We want to get between a 0 and 1. And we repeat the same thing over and over again. Hence what wires together. But you can take what was wired together and rewire it so that they are not necessarily triggered by it. And in fact, if you do it a few times in less than 45 minutes, I generally can get anybody who has a single phobic response to, I have not had a problem with that. That is a clear phobia, to drop down to between 0 and 1. I don't go 0 because they have to be exposed to that thing for them to know that it's no longer there. But I have pictures of people who, one lady had a cat phobia. Oh, she was like, wow, over the top. And you think, pussycat, what's wrong with that? No. She is terrified. Like, like that, just talking about that, it was like horrible. And in less than 45 minutes, boom, she's fine. She goes over to a friend's and I ask her, can you take a video of you seeing a cat? No issues.
I love this because, finding a formula for breakthrough in life is so important, because we don't have to find like a new way to get past each thing that we're scared of. And we all have fears of different things, right? So it's amazing that you've found this formula that works to be applied to many different things, to anything we have a phobia of. So that's really, really fascinating.
Well, okay, it's more than just phobias, though. Seriously, because I can deal with fears that way. I can deal with anxiety that way as well. And things like people who have imposter syndrome. I can deal with that, and I apply mind models to that so that they can lock that in like forever, for the rest of their life, if they so choose to. So when you start pairing the neuroscience, TFT, thought field therapy, and you apply mind models and you smush together, you've got, the phobia freedom formula. And
incredible.
that lasts forever.
So, okay, I want to shift gears. We got to take a quick pause to shout out the sponsor of the show. But when we come back, one of the biggest things when I'm doing coaching, leadership coaching and things like that with businesses and organizations and people, conflict resolution, conflict management is one of the biggest struggles that people have. And one of the biggest phobias people have is conflict and how to deal with it. So I want to talk about, you have a super fast way to resolve intense arguments. And I really want to dive into that. We'll do that here in just a couple of seconds. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Blair, intense arguments, conflicts, people really struggle. You have a fast way of resolving these sorts of issues. What do you do in an intense situation like that?
Well, one of the first things that you need to do, and this is not without skill, you do have to have a little bit of skill, but you have to be able to accept where the other person is at. And when you can accept where they're at and you seek understanding, you want to literally say to them, hey, okay, we've been arguing here, and let me just pause this for a second, if that's okay. And notice that I'm saying, if that's okay, I'm asking permission. And they generally say, okay, what's up? I go, well, all I want to really do here is I'm not understanding your point of view. Can we work through how I can understand it and at the very least, accept your position? I may not agree with it, but I'd like to accept it. Is that okay? And right there, boom, right there, you just say what I've said more or less similarly, you're going to have taken them from an 8, 9, or 10 down to a 6, 5, or 4. Now, not saying that it won't explode again if you screw up, but it's given you a place to actually go after those things if you're actually curious. And it's got to be curiosity led here. Because you can't use it to set up, see, I told you I was right. See, this is my stuff. We've got a thing called the 3 Ps. It's mind model. And the 3 Ps are prove, and it's with questioning. We prove, we position, or we build a process. The third one, the process piece, can only be done with curiosity. Okay? Where the other 2, it's all about telling without telling. It's asking questions to prove your where you are and position yourself to prove that you're correct, that you are the person that knows. And nobody likes that. So let's just jump to process. And what I gave you before is a process flow to actually understand where that person is at. The funny thing is, once they feel understood, you've just increased the odds that they'll also want to know and understand where you're at.
Man, I wrote that down because it's such a simple thing, right? What I always love is that the best things are so simple. Asking that permission, and genuinely, this goes back to Dale Carnegie, right? How to win friends and influence people. When you're genuinely interested in people, you're going to have breakthroughs with them. You're going to build incredible relationships because you're actually interested. So you have to really practice this in your life, make this a staple of your life. I'm curious about people. I'm curious, even if you, especially if you disagree with them, you need to be curious.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
Asking that permission. Yeah.
Asking that permission, that's exactly where I was going to go. But asking that permission demonstrates a level of interest and opens up curiosity.
Yeah, because people want why does somebody want to fight with you? Because at the core of it, they feel misunderstood. You're not understanding them.
Always.
So if you're asking for permission, you're now taking interest in them, trying to understand them more. And usually somebody who's pretty prone to conflict is not used to being heard, you know?
Yep.
That's probably why there's a lot of conflict going on, because they feel like they're never understood.
If I can share at this point here, if you are curious and you want to ask questions, say, you know, if they're still battling back, one of the questions that I you know, share with them, I just ask them, can I ask you another question? And they keep on going for a bit. And then I say, can I really ask you a question? I really want to know if you want to stay in an argument with me or you would like to get it resolved. And I'd like to find out your point of view. Seriously. I'm not asking this frivolously. I really want to know. I may not agree with it, and we may be able to agree to disagree, but I want to understand your point of view. And that de-escalates 99% of the arguments I've ever seen.
Yeah, I could personally attest to that, and it can open up conversation, because so you're looking at conflict like this. Conflict is always an opportunity for growth, right? So conflict is two people have differentiating levels of knowledge or areas of knowledge, and those areas of knowledge are like battling each other. They're confronting each other, and so we have to make those two levels of knowledge connect and kind of intertwine, and then we're going to see the world from a whole new perspective, right? And that's really a beautiful thing. I recently just had this with my sister, where the election happened. You know, we're here at the end of 2024. The election went down. We both had differentiating opinions on who should have won, and that created conflict. That conflict, and I'm not going to say it's her fault or my fault, but she initiated that. She was offended, but she didn't really want to talk about it. So I reached out to her and I said, listen, I don't want to debate. I don't even need to tell you. I don't need to tell you anything, but I would like to understand your side. And if you want to understand my side too, that's cool. But it opened up these conversations that we never would have had otherwise. We never would talk about this stuff. And it actually, in my personal, you'd have to ask her, but for me, it brought me closer to her, better understanding her and knowing more of, you know, what she's all about, which was really beneficial for me. And so we never would get there if we didn't have conflict, and we'd never have that opportunity without the conflict.
You know what? Conflict gives us great opportunity to reach inside of that conflict and find the seed of opportunity and growth that we can't find if we just stay in conflict.
Yeah, for sure. Switching gears towards the end of this episode to, you know, the wealth part of this, and you know, people. You talk about helping people have better buying conversations, right?
Yes.
And building their business, being able to, if they have a valuable product that they want people to embrace and purchase, but you hate feeling like a salesperson.
Yep.
Right. What strategies do you have for that with the mind models?
Well, I spent 25 years researching this, and traditional selling and sales training does not work like it used to do. 35 years ago, when I started my research in this area, I asked these two simple questions. First question was, do you like or love to be sold? So I'll ask this of you. Rob, do you like or love to be sold?
No, I don't. I hate it.
No. You know what? And you're going hate it. Okay, so you don't just like it, you hate it. And
it's very much a turnoff. Yeah.
Exactly. And that is approximately 98 to 99% of the population. Okay. Now, second question. Do you like or love to buy?
Yeah, if it's something I really want, sure. I love buying something. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Again, there is about 2%, solid 2% of people who don't like buying in the research that I've done. but they don't want to spend money on anything. Okay,
Yeah.
they just don't. But 98% of people really like or love to buy. So how come we're selling people? Because sales trainers sell business owners courses because and call it sales training to train up their people so that they can make more money. But at the end of the day, I was working for a client who had a internationally recognized sales training company, and they had been frozen for 5 years at 10% close rate on the cold calling of their initial contacts. And that was 10% close rate. Well, I didn't even finish training up people on igniting the buying conversation, and they were already up 20% close rate without a complete training. And one of the key things that happened was their annual convention year prior with the old sales team, they had the biggest ever sales with 450 buying units. They had a $1.2 million close rate. The only issue was that they had a 35% refund rate. No, sorry, correct that. It was a 30% refund rate. However, the following year, I had finished my training with the sales team, and their sales closes on 350 buying units, so down 100. They closed 1.9 million and had a 2% refund rate.
Wow.
I know. With igniting the buying conversation, there are only two real fundamental objections: time or money. I don't have time to take the course, buy it. The timing is wrong, can't do it right now, whatever, or the money. It's too expensive. I don't have the money. My wife would kill me if I spent that money in here. She doesn't understand that, all those kinds of money issues. And I go, yeah, it's time or money. Those are the only two fundamental objections that people have left. Not all these other things that you have to get really creative around. And that causes people to feel manipulated. And because you actually are manipulating them as a salesperson, and you're being manipulated. So what if we stopped forcing people to make decisions and started giving people in a conversation a choice? Are you a member at Costco?
No, Sam's Club though, which is
very similar.
Yes.
Okay, so when you go to Sam's Club, do you walk out of there with spending less than $50 or $100?
Sometimes, but most of the time it's more. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody try and make you sell you anything there?
No.
Oh.
They're giving you away free samples. You could go in there and get some free snacks,
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing here is that there are no salespeople in Sam's Club or Costco. And the point being is that you are choosing to buy, not being sold. And when have you taken something back to Sam's Club?
I know I have, but not very often.
No. How come? It's probably a manufacturing defect or something else along that line where you thought it would do A and it doesn't do A, it does B when you get it home, and you take it back there. But that's about the only time. So they don't have very many refunds, but they'll guarantee refund to almost anything. Well, to anything except for electronics or stuff like that are very fragile and yada, yada, yada. But even that, they sometimes have a 30-day limited warranty, not a lifetime. So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You're not being sold. So when you buy, you don't get buyer's remorse, which should be seller's remorse, when you're being sold, but they call it buyer's remorse. You don't get that because you bought, and it was your choice, not forced into a decision.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. My mentor, Ray, he's amazing. He's not a salesman at all, but he's amazing at what he does. He's in his 80s now, but he ran grocery chains and did coaching and consulting for years. And he says you never want to sell anybody anything. All you need to do is create a buyer. And creating a buyer is going to take more time than just selling somebody something, right? Most of the time, because you got to build, especially, it depends on what you're selling. But if you're selling something like a service like coaching, that's going to be something somebody's not going to buy just on a whim. They're going to have to get to know you. And then, because it's usually an investment. Like if I work with somebody, it's for 6 months to a year. They're not going to just show up one day and be like, hey, I'm ready to buy from you. No, it's like we've built a relationship. They've seen what I've done. I've built maybe there's referrals involved. Maybe there's reputation involved, or they've just been following me for a while. And so one day that buying opportunity opens up. But I'm not ever actively selling somebody what I do. I'm creating a buyer in that process. And I'm still learning that and understanding how that works, but it is amazing how it does work. And you were just saying before we started here, the same for you is like these opportunities will show up where you've been probably planting a seed with somebody for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then now all of a sudden they're ready to buy. But you don't have to sell them anything because they're all in.
Yeah, my last 2 clients. I mean, both of them. Well, one of them was literally a 20-minute conversation, and they bought. It's $1,500 a month for 6 months, so $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 worth of stuff off a 20-minute conversation for me, because his brother, who I've never met, saw me at a client company's training, or through a client company that he was a member of, and said he was complaining to his brother that he's tried everything. He's gone through, all the counseling, all the coaching. There's nobody out there that has changed anything. And I mean, he was extremely skeptical for the first 5 minutes. And I said, I'm not going to sell you anything. And you can choose to buy or not. Like if this fits for you, great. If it doesn't fit for you, I'll try and point you in a direction of where to go. And, that's basically it. And he said, wow, okay. Here's my story. I profiled him a bit. And I said, well, you sort of need these mind models, these mind models, these mind models. You might want to buy my book and read that and do the free gift that I'm giving to you right now on the 3 E's. And it's got an hour and 20-minute free masterclass in there as well. So you can take that stuff, learn about it. And if you still agree that this is, sign up for this stuff. I do things very differently. I don't do it with the basic psychology that everybody else does out there. In fact, I wound up attracting a guy to me who heard me talk on a different podcast, but he sort of tracked me for quite a while. But the funny thing about him is he tutors psychologists to pass their psychology exam, yet he wanted to learn my stuff because he knows the psychology stuff and does it and did it and realized it didn't work, at least not the way he wanted it to. And he wanted to actually get real change. And I've had 3 psychologists, retired, all 3 of them, coming back, buying my book and telling me, I wish I had this. Like, Ultimate Mind Hacking is the name of the book here. And that's it there, available on Amazon. But I mean, he said, I wish I knew this stuff before. It's amazing.
Amazing. Ultimate Mind Hacking. Buy it on Amazon right now. Yep. Amazing. Blair, you're awesome, man. I love it. That's why I wanted to have you back on.
I'll give you a quick link to, if people want to, when they do that, I'll just put a link here for them to grab it as well. So,
and I'm putting up on here too, on the screen, if you're listening, a free gift. You can go to go.mindmodelmentor.com/3ES. 3ES. It's go.mindmodelmentor.com/3ES for a free gift from Blair. I want to remind you guys also, if you want to launch that platform and be the authority in your industry, in your space, launch your podcast, make it happen. Go to robzwentz.com.
Yes.
Blair, anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to mention before we wrap this thing up?
Well, if people want to do a deeper dive with mind models, if they like what they're finding here, you can always get me on blairdunkley.com, and you might want to join up to become a mind model method coach and or take IBC, Igniting the Mind Conversation. So those are some other things that you can do. So, I mean, it's always available. It's there. I'm training up people, and I want to train people who can train other people as well. So if that's your aspiration to change lives and to do it in a very, very meaningful way, please let me know. And maybe we can work together and create something so that you can help change other people's worlds.
Wonderful. Find everything you need to know about Blair at blairdunkley.com. This has been another true testimony of breakthrough. Until next time, this is the Unstuck Movement.